Good evening, everybody. This is Atmospheric Alex here with yet another tropical weather forecast outlook and discussion here, as we are still talking about some tropical activity out there. Jerry, though, really isn't doing all too good right now, and that is something that I saw while editing yesterday's video, so my wording towards the beginning of the video was a little too aggressive, and I do apologize for that. But in the weather world, mistakes are made sometimes, and all I had to do was look at the satellite imagery a little bit closer, because the center of Jerry, actually this is a real-time satellite image, the center of Jerry was right here, but all your thunderstorm activity is here, and I did not see that the center was displaced, so Jerry is struggling quite a bit right now. I'm not expecting it to do all that much. So as we move into our satellite imagery here, we can see what Jerry currently looks like. You can see a massive explosion of thunderstorms currently ongoing right now, right over there. That's not right over the center, because believe it or not, our center of circulation is actually right within, once it stops, right within there, right where I circled it there. So that is extremely displaced from our convection, which means it is going to continue struggling a lot over the next probably day or two at the very least. And here is where Jerry is moving. It is expected to totally avoid the Lesser Antilles, which is some fantastic news. We're looking at yesterday's video. There were a lot of models shoving it right into the islands, but it has since shifted way off to the northeast, so little to almost no impacts are expected. Now, unless you're maybe in Antigua and Barbuda and maybe further north, you have some tropical storm conditions possible, but I wouldn't worry too much. Then as this does curve out to sea, I'm not expecting impacts to be too serious. And hopefully this shows up on your screen. We have no idea what Jerry's going to do. It could totally fall apart tomorrow and weaken to a low-end tropical storm, or it could intensify, even rapidly intensify into a major hurricane. So we've got a really big window right here of potential for what this system could do. So that is something to really watch there. I am thinking this will likely peak around a high-end tropical storm to a low-end Category 1 hurricane, though a hurricane actually looks a lot less likely now than it did even just a couple hours ago, so we're going to have to continue to watch that. Now, as we take a look at our European Ensemble Model, or EPS, I can't talk this evening, goodness gracious, we're seeing Jerry here. This model is going extremely aggressive and is showing a major hurricane by the time we go into Friday morning. I'm not entirely sure if I believe this. It's funny because, again, yesterday's video, I was saying how the models weren't strong enough, and I missed a key detail, so yeah, kind of a little bit of a knock to my reputation there, unfortunately, but it is going to be recovered a bit in this video. Some models, or some members I should say, do have this really deepening down. You can see at our minimum down here at 943 millibars. That is a very powerful Category 4 hurricane, and that is not a forecast and certainly not likely at this time, as it continues to struggle with wind shear and maybe a peppering of dry air as well. And how does our main deterministic European model look on Tropical Tidbits? You can see it does show gradual strengthening. I do think this is fairly realistic at this time. Around a high-end tropical storm is possible by the time this blasts off to the northeast of your leeward and windwards. This does potentially strengthen all the way up into maybe a Category 2 hurricane according to our European model. So something very fascinating to watch out for, though I don't really expect it to get this strong. But when we start seeing maybe some frontal interaction, we may see some baroclinic deepening rather than barotropic deepening, which could actually help the storm out quite a lot. Then we have this mess off the east coast. We're going to be talking about that in a little bit, but this thing definitely gets established 973 millibars, certainly a very intense storm. And there's going to be a lot of wind shear to contend with Jerry here. You can see it. Definitely is going to cause a hard capped limit on our intensity here, as your wind shear is going to do this and kind of shift everything out of proportion and shred it, not to pieces necessarily, but is going to limit it a lot. And as this continues moving off to the north, it does get in a bit of a better environment, a little more favorable right there. As we continue through, a little bit of a gap in the wind shear occurs, and we do actually begin to see some very nice anticyclonic outflow here to Jerry, and that could definitely promote some last-minute strengthening. So yeah, a hurricane not out of the question, but this thing really needs to get established fast before it runs out of time in the subtropics. And that continues on through. Again, wind shear looking fairly light, but not a forecast. What does our dry air have to say? We do have quite a bit of moisture on our eastern end of our system here, but our western end does lack some, and you can see some of our brown and tan shadings there, indicating much less rainfall and much less humidity. As this moves north, it finds itself in a better moisture pocket right within here, so that is again why it could intensify, and wind shear will be lower. So actually, you know what? Yeah, Category 1 hurricane, definitely possible. I wouldn't say likely, but is becoming more possible, I'd say. And then dry air tries to attack this later on, then maybe another moisture pocket. We're getting into the schematics too much, okay? But just know that there is a chance this becomes a hurricane in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. Now, as we look at our European AI model, or ensemble, I should say, keeps it quite a bit weak. And yeah, honestly, this does not show much in the way of development at all, which is funny because remember, the AI model really hasn't been showing much with this system, when all the other models, including the hurricane models, showed a major hurricane, a Cat 4, even a Category 5 on some of our earlier runs. But the AI models, they are not budging, and they are showing a much lower intensity around a high-end tropical storm. They've been showing this for the past week, I believe, for this system. So huge round of applause does go to our AI models this time. Really good performance indeed. As we take a look at our main AI model here, definitely keeps it weak. A little too weak in my opinion, but hey, again, it's sheared to pieces right now. It could stay weak. And then we have this over here we're going to talk about in just a minute. Our GFS ensemble here, oh gosh, that doesn't show much at all. In fact, that is only one member there. That's a little bit ludicrous if you ask me. And it does not strengthen the system too much. So it seems like the AI and the GFS have actually been doing pretty good this go around, which is a bit surprising. Well, I should say the GFS ensembles, because this did show like a Category 4 the other day, and that's not happening. This does quickly kill it off as it forms an additional low pressure system right here, and this causes some very weird and funky stuff to occur. This system gets ripped off to the north with a ton of wind shear and just a ton of different dynamics going into play that is super unfavorable in this interaction. You can see it completely going poof after the 5-day mark. Pretty remarkable if you ask me. Now, I know you all saw that gigantic low pressure system in the mid-Atlantic to New England regions, right? Well, we're going to go over that real quick. It is a non-tropical system, so it is a cold core low pressure system, but it could get pretty strong and deliver maybe some strong damaging winds, some heavy rain, and storm surge for portions of the Northeast that may not quite be used to that as much. We'll have to wait and see. As we can see here on our European ensemble, there you go. We do have that system. We do have a couple of pretty intense members, a 973 millibar low pressure system going right over the Outer Banks. And I don't know if you've heard the recent news, but we've actually been having a ton of houses falling into the Atlantic Ocean along the Outer Banks. There's been a ton of beach erosion in that area. And of course, your salt does not help either. And just kind of questioning why they would build homes right there, especially on stilts where they're a lot more susceptible to come crashing down. But that's a conversation for another day. This lands right over that area. Holy cow, yeah. Definitely don't want to be seeing that. And then another one there. But you could definitely see there's a ton of uncertainty with this next system. Some members bring it in like this, and then some members bring it out like this. Who knows what's going to happen? This is a very uncertain forecast, and some real freaky stuff is going to happen in just a minute in this forecast, or in this model. We do, for some reason, have some members pulling Jerry back off towards New England. There is going to be some weird interactions possible next week with both of these systems, and we're just going to have to wait and see. Could we have a Fujiwara effect? I'm not forecasting it, but it's a possibility. And this is just fantasy land at this point. Okay, and here's your main European model to maybe make things a bit easier to see, because obviously that wasn't going to help. You can see here the rain being displaced way off to the north of our low pressure system, so northeast New England definitely going to be seeing seeing some rain. Pretty strong, potentially even damaging winds going on through the Chesapeake Bay here. We've had some models trending this further south, right off the coastline right here. So that is something to watch, and then it does some really weird stuff, and yeah, it just leaves the frame and then comes back, and you know what, maybe looking after the day 7 mark in this particular instance is not a good idea. What does our GFS ensemble say? Well, you could see there's a little bit more agreement here, a little more tightly packed, but still we're having members doing this, and we're having members doing this, so quite a big spread right within here. Again, this would cause no impacts, while this would cause maybe significant impacts, you know, right along, you know, say Delaware, Maryland, New Jersey, New York, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts possibly, maybe even going up there as well into Maine, but again, we'll have to wait and see. And this does a little tango, and oh yeah, we're going to stop it right there. Our main GFS model does strengthen this a little bit more. Very tight pressure gradient right here. Definitely going to be something to really watch out for right along our coastline right there. Again, you have a much higher pressure out here and a much lower pressure out here. In between the two, you're going to get a very strong area of wind to develop. And this, again, just does some weird things, and I'm sure it's doing a dance off the screen. Who knows? And with that being said, I'm going to cut this upload a little bit short because our hurricane models, well, they're a little bit weaker at this time, and they're going to miss the islands, they're going to miss Bermuda. There's absolutely no point in going into the data right now. All you need to know is the HWRF model, the HWRF, is on something showing a major hurricane, which I don't see at this current point in time. Also, Caribbean may need to watch out over the next week. I've been seeing some members starting to pepper a bit of a signal down here. Not a forecast, but again, I will talk about more in the next video if it's still there. If you did enjoy today's video, please be sure to smash that like button, subscribe to my little corner of the weather community. Also, be sure to share this with friends and family on social media, and even leave a comment in the section below if you found this video informative or even entertaining. With that said, you all have a wonderful night, and stay weather aware, and I guess watch out for things. It could get a little bit weird over the next week.